Pomp, my friend, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. I'd love to hear what the hell you're up to these days, because you kind of, you closed down what you were doing, pivoted away to a family office, and you're now a man of mystery. All I just see is your motivational tweets every morning, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what the hell are you up to? Because you're clearly up to a lot, because you're up to no good generally.
Yeah, we got a good amount of stuff going on. So if I really think about, where I've been in my career, I've built companies, I've invested in, probably 150 companies, something like that at this point. And I eventually just got to the point where I said, I want to do something that I can do for the next 20 years, 30 years. And when you take that mentality, you realize a couple of things. One, managing money on the behalf of other people is fun. It's great. But it's not like managing your own money.
Ish.
And, look, it's I feel incredibly fortunate, right? When you first start out, you basically need everyone else's money because that's how you get started. At some point, you just say, look, even if my own money is less than what I could raise, there's certain advantages that it provides. And also it gives you the ability to take certain risks that you may not be as comfortable with other people's money. And it also saves you a lot of time. One of the things that I joke with folks is I get a lot less phone calls now from LPs who are trying to learn, et cetera. I enjoy teaching, but at the same time, sometimes you just want to do investing. So really, the way that we think about the family office is there's two sides to it. One is investing, and then one is building companies. And so we've built a couple of different companies. Some we're talking about publicly, some not yet. But the idea is just how do you build something that is you, and you keep that 20, 30 year time frame. You'll make a bunch of mistakes. You'll learn as you go. But so far, I'm having fun and enjoying it, which is probably the most important part.
Is the media business part of this now? So you're thinking of it like a holding company and the media. And what are you doing with the media business? Because I'd love to hear, because you teamed up with your brothers now. How's that all going?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that content in some way is you have to do it if you want to operate in kind of the digital world. We've been very fortunate that we had a long time horizon. There was no urgency when I started a lot of the content. And I think that that's probably one of the key things that I've learned over time is when you raise money and you do all this stuff like, hey, let's go. Where's the monthly update? What's going on here? And that's great for some businesses. Like go as fast as possible is a really, really successful strategy for certain types. But it's also a really bad strategy for other types of businesses. And so, I tend to think that the way that we built the content business, we wouldn't have been successful if it had been, go raise a ton of money right out of the gate, go hire 50 people and go. And so that business today has a bunch of different properties in there. And we think of some of it as just like very self-fulfilling of like the podcast I get to just learn. And it's amazing. I get conversations with people.
It's the best job in the world, right? Just sitting down and doing this.
It's funny to talk to you about it because I'm sure you feel the same way where
it's a privilege. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Well, there's people who look. I think I'm pretty self-aware about it. There's people who I probably would have a much harder time talking with in terms of getting a meeting with them or learning from them if it wasn't under the guise of, hey, if you come and you talk with me, then I'm going to publish it to all these people, and you'll get some value out of it as well. So I don't take that lightly. But also through conversations with a lot of people. If you think of the mainstream coverage of this kind of whole new world, I think there's an opportunity to do it from a more native perspective. And so it's less of, interviews one-on-one with people that you would expect in a podcast or maybe something that you guys would do. And it's more kind of news-based, and it's driving at ultimately what is the product that people want today. And if you really think about many of the cable networks, they're closed systems. They think of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies is a very small part of their coverage. And the people who are talking about it probably don't really understand that much about it, right? There's exceptions, but just naturally, they got a lot of stuff going on. What's going on in the oil market, what's going on in the bond market, and what's that crypto thing. And so we think that there's an opportunity to just invert all that, like go to the open network, go ahead and have folks who understand it. And then on top of that, can you do this for an international audience? And so one of the things about crypto that's very unique is it is a very, very international market compared to finance
globally, right?
Yeah. And so, look, I'm having fun doing it. We'll kind of see where it goes, but being in the driver's seat and not having to go at a certain speed or be forced to hire people or whatever allows us to really experiment with a ton of different things. And some of it will work, some of it won't. But at the end of the day, as comes with when it's your own money, you get the benefit, but also you take the risk. And, there's definitely been some things I've, experimented with. And I'm like, man, that was a real fast way to burn some money. But, but it's all part of the game and it's fun that way.
So talk to me about where you are in the Bitcoin world right now, what you've been looking at, whether you've been investing in stuff yourself or, what's your attention there in Bitcoin?
Yeah, Bitcoin is, I think, in a really unique place. If you almost thought of maybe pre-2017, that was kind of the first season of Bitcoin. It went from completely unknown to at the doorstep of kind of initial mainstream adoption. And that frankly happened without many people paying attention. Politicians weren't paying attention. Regulators were kind of aware of it, but not really paying attention. Nation states didn't even know what Bitcoin was. Financial institutions were laughing at anyone who was, dabbling in it, all that type of stuff. I think 2017 was the start of maybe season 2. And you can go 2017 through 2020. And the way that I think about that is you get, some more mainstream awareness. You obviously get the 2017 bull market, you get the crash, you get a whole bunch of this stuff. And that was good for Bitcoin. But it was, maybe like a continuation of season 1, just on steroids. So more people, more of the same, just bigger scale. 2020, I think, was the start of what I call season 3. And I think we're still in season 3, but there were some major, major changes, and they weren't obvious right out of the gate. So, you can look at simple things like the removal of career risk on Wall Street. Paul Tudor Jones, Stanley Druckenmiller, these folks coming out and saying, hey, I'm putting this in my portfolio. Portfolio managers across Wall Street now say, well, I can do it and I'm not going to get fired if it doesn't work because guess what? PTJ did it, right? And these other folks. So I think that was a big part of it. On top of that, I also think that the holder base is changing and their behaviors are changing. And so historically, people who were buying Bitcoin, they weren't macro traders. They weren't in tune with interest rates and kind of the whole financialization of the asset. Instead, they just treated it as a reserve asset. And dollar cost averaged into it. And you can see, very, very non-correlated pretty much up until 2020. But now with about 2 years of data, you look and Bitcoin's been very correlated to NASDAQ and some of these other risk type assets since 2020. And so, if you use that kind of season analogy, season 3 brought in new players, but those new players don't act like the old players. And some of that's good, right? It's kind of like...
Yeah, it's probably capped the downside because if this was a bear market, it would have been down 85%, but it's down 50% because we got different buyers.
Yeah, and I just think about it when you're playing minor league baseball, there's some people who are good, some people who aren't. Now you're in the big leagues, right? And that's not a knock against season 1 and season 2 participants because they're still here, right? That's the key piece. They didn't leave. You're just now bringing in, these quote unquote major league players, and they got a lot of money, right? They got a lot of experience. There's good and bad with their participation. So, November, December, they hear interest rates. What do? They start selling. Right. And they're very much thinking about this as a risk asset. At the same time, to your point, drawdowns are probably tampered a little bit and we're in pretty good shape. And I think that what we're doing is probably, I don't know, maybe this season lasts 2, maybe 3 years. So, maybe we're halfway through heading into, towards the end of it. And this idea of season 4, I think is when this becomes a full blown consensus trade outside of Wall Street. So season 1 and 2 was contrarian to consensus among retail. Season 3 really was going from contrarian trade to consensus on Wall Street in terms of financial institutions, hedge funds, et cetera. Season 4 is when you now get public companies, nation states, large energy producers, et cetera. And I don't know if there's an end to season 4. Maybe at some point we can come up with, okay, there's season 5, 6, 7, whatever. But it feels like season 4 then is you have now infiltrated the major organizations and entities globally, and they all are convinced that the value's there. We see some of it happening now. Exxon, ConocoPhillips in the energy world. They're kind of doing some pilots. You've got El Salvador and the nation states. But when all of a sudden every sovereign wealth fund is like, of course we have this, right? Every public company is like, of course we have this. Central banks around the world are like, we would be dumb not to have it. That to me feels like that's a different season than the one we're in right now. But, you can see line of sight to it and it'll happen. It's just a question of when do we get there?
The cryptoverse is an incredibly exciting place, and it's going to be absolutely massive. This has been just a small taste of my own personal journey into crypto. Join me for free over on realvision.com/crypto as we discover just what this new world will look like and much more.